theories that we can think of. Next one. So here are the Arabs, Lebanese, and Israeli Arabs, Maghrebians, and others. And you can see even among Arabs, it's different mutation pattern. Next slide. Jews, Ashkenazis, North Africans, Iraqis, and others. Others, mostly Sephardic Jews, mostly from Iran. They thought they didn't even have this because Ashkenazi says, oh, you're different Jews than us. But then they do have it, and they have a different pattern. You can see from Ashkenazis, such a different patterns they have. Next one. So Turks and Armenians. Very similar patterns, you can see that. Jews have different patterns among themselves, or the Arabs, or the other. But Turks and Armenians, because, as I mentioned, Turks have Kurds in them. Kurds, Armenians were in the thousands of years ago, same region. So pretty much same people. Then, of course, maybe the patients in the Turkish population are mostly come from Armenian ancestry for some reason. Now you can see the similarity. Next one. And Jews and Arabs, which we thought they are Semites and very similar, at least in this case they're different because I believe these are the Ashkenazis, and Ashkenazis are mostly European converted Jews from Eastern Europe and area that intermarriage between them has caused this mutation, and the numbers are pretty high too, so that's all I could say about their population and mutation patterns. So Qarabakh people. Qarabakh people and Armenian people. You can see the difference. 2 identified mutations, only 66-7 in Qarabakh population, 90% almost in Armenian, and no identified mutations, 15%. You can see the patterns are different even in Qarabakh population and Armenian population. And that's because of the geographic isolation, which some mutations are dispersed differently than the others. Next slide. And this is the difference between the Jewish populations in mutation of Jewish, and you can see E148Q is the one which is really dominant in Jewish population. In Armenians, it's M694V. Very different. One comes from exon 2, one is in exon 10. Quite different population. Next. And here in different population, here that's exactly what I said. You can see the Armenians, M694V is 11 is high, and then in other Jews, E148Q is pretty much high, and Italian and so on and so forth. For the sake of time, I'm going to pass quickly on this. So our analysis, this is the highlight of this presentation. So here is, we took 1,711 individuals from Armenia with all the information and some samples that I could get, so I could bring it here and I could sequence the complete gene to see if they have any extra ones, and practically we need two mutations because they can't find it. I'm sequencing it, so I should be able to find it. But what happened, I couldn't either. So that's what the real story came about. So you can see 18.5%, only one mutation, but they are still affected individuals. Next. So here is the Qarabakh, Sevan, Yerevan, and France. And again, you can see the Qarabakh population is different in these 2 mutations than the rest of them. Next one. Here is the population, the mutation frequencies, and you can see the in Armenia, over half of them are M694V. That's the dominant mutation in Armenian population, and then the other 2 dominants are V726A and M680I. And which I will call them VA, MV, and so on and so forth. Here's the distribution in those individuals. Next. Here's the ones that we did here. These were referred patients from here in Los Angeles. Physicians referred them to us. And from 100 and something that we did, 53 of them had it. But again, these are symptomatic ones. So that's a very, very high genetic disorder percentage to have as a positive. Extremely high. Usually genetic disorders are between 1 to 5% of the population. This is really, really high, and we were able to find. But since our numbers are only 53, you can see the distributions are a little different. Heterozygous, we have more heterozygous, but if we had continued, we would have looked more like the Armenian population. Next one. Here is the comparison. That's the Armenian population. So they had compound heterozygous. Compound heterozygous means they have 2 mutations, but they have 2 different ones. Homozygous means they have two different mutations, but they have the same one. And heterozygous means they have one mutation. Again, different patterns, but because our numbers is just 50 and theirs is 1700, so we were expecting to statistically be very different from each other. Next. And this is the mutation frequency, next slide, which I have a comparison, next one. Here is the comparison between our study and the Yerevan study, and you can see here it looks more like each other. And if we had maybe 500 patients, it would have been pretty much looked like the one here. Armenian population is one population. It's not like Jewish population that they were 2,000 years apart in different areas and different mixing of the population. We are just one population, doesn't matter we come from Iran or Lebanon or the western Armenia or the eastern side of Armenia. It's the same mix, same population. Next. So here's what we did. We took this information and we wanted to show that if you have one mutation, we have to treat these patients. Many physicians, when they look at one mutation, because literature said you have to have two mutations to be full-blown FMF and treatment starts. Now we said no. We think that with one mutation there is a problem. And how so? We tried to be creative to show it. This is the first initial step that we tried to show it. And we submitted it to the journal, they didn't accept it. So we had to get more creative to be able to publish it. So you can see we put the individuals with their symptoms, single symptoms, double symptoms, triple symptoms, and four symptoms, individuals that had all four together. We put them together, we got their percentages. This is for homozygous, that means they had the two mutations from the same gene. Next. These are compound heterozygous, which you can see two different mutations. And different individuals we had, these are more rare mutations. If you go to the next slide, you can see the high numbers. They back please. 375, 216 compared to 213, because those are the three major mutations that we are trying to show that even if they have one mutation, they are causing a mild disease. They have to be treated. That was the whole point. Next slide. This is the heterozygote ones. And we can see that heterozygotes have the same symptoms as which means they have one mutation, as the people who had two mutations. So that was the whole point about it. Next slide. So when we did a comparison and we did obviously this had an animation which is behind it, but we got 90, 97, and 95% of correlation between the symptoms of heterozygous versus homozygous. Now, this makes sense, but then with today's advanced science, it's not enough to publish. So we move to the next slide.